What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch back here with another NFL video, and in this video, I'm going to break down for you all the potential playoff scenarios that could take place in Week 17 of the 2019 season, all the potential wildcard matchups we could see come January, the way that Week 17 could impact the entirety of the AFC and the NFC playoffs, and potentially even have a big impact on who we could see advancing in this year's playoffs. So before my predictions and the run through of all the scenarios, make sure that you do Gronk spike the like button and subscribe to The Bottom Line View for more NFL videos just like this. Also, get in the comments section below. I want to hear your opinion. What do you think is going to happen in Week 17? Who do you think is going to win? And who do you think is going to be finalized in the playoffs? Also, what matchups would you like to see? Not the ones that you think are going to happen, but who do you want to see in the playoffs? And then third, which games do you think have the most impact in terms of the interesting impact on the playoffs? Like, what could totally change the prediction of your Super Bowl winner if it happened in Week 17? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, so let's get into the ESPN playoff machine, and we'll take a look at all of the potential Week 17 matchups. So let's pull it up here. And in Week 17, the first game I want to start off with is the big one with the number 1 seed taking on the number 7 seed in the AFC. This one is not very important for Baltimore. As John Harbaugh has already said, he will be sitting not only the MVP Lamar Jackson, but also quite a few key members to the football team like Mark Ingram and Earl Thomas. So, that being said, Pittsburgh has a much bigger chance of winning this game than they would if Lamar Jackson and those players were playing. That also means that the number 1 seed is not really up for grabs in Week 17. So Baltimore is clinched in the number 1 seed in the AFC. But this game is massive for Pittsburgh. So for Pittsburgh, they are right now not the number 6 seed. They need to win that game versus Baltimore, and then they need to look over at the Tennessee Titans and the Houston Texans. Who is going to win that game? And the determining factor will be these two games having the impact on the AFC wildcard round. So if Tennessee wins, Tennessee will clinch versus Houston. If Pittsburgh wins and Tennessee loses, Pittsburgh is in. If Pittsburgh wins and Tennessee wins, Tennessee is in as the number 6 seed because Pittsburgh kind of choked versus the New York Jets. So just to go over that, if Houston were to win, then you have Pittsburgh in. If Tennessee were to win and Pittsburgh were to lose, it doesn't matter. If Pittsburgh were to win, look, there you go. So that's how Pittsburgh gets in, and that's how Tennessee gets in. So that is the wild card scenarios for the AFC. Looking at Buffalo, they are the number 5 seed, and they're stuck in the number 5 seed. They can't really do anything here. They cannot win the AFC East because they lost their chance and their opportunity on Saturday night versus the Patriots. So if they lose to the Jets, it doesn't matter even if Pittsburgh and Tennessee both win. Let's say Pittsburgh loses. Let's say Tennessee loses. It does not have an impact at all. So Pittsburgh or Tennessee could be the number 6, but not the number 5. So Buffalo is just basically looking at who do we want to play? Houston, Kansas City. I guess we don't have a choice on that matter. So let's say Buffalo does come up with the win. Not that it really matters. They may decide to rest people, but I don't think there's been any news on that front yet. Let's say that Pittsburgh wins versus Baltimore because Lamar Jackson and those players are not playing, although I still think there is an opportunity that they could lose that game. And then you look at Tennessee and Houston, and because Houston won the first matchup and Tennessee was smart, they rested a lot of their big-time playmakers, I think that actually Tennessee could win that game versus Houston. I don't think there's as much on the line for Houston. I think actually Houston, it doesn't matter who they play, if it's Buffalo or if it's Tennessee. I don't think they want to play a team 3 times in a year. I'm just being honest. I think they would prefer to play Buffalo because they haven't played them yet, from as far as I understand. So Houston, I don't think they're going to take this game all that seriously. Tennessee, let's say, comes up with the victory. That means I believe right now that Tennessee will make the playoffs in the AFC. Now, the other game we do need to take a look at is the New England Patriots and, of course, the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Chargers. So the Patriots play the Dolphins. I think no matter what, the Patriots will win this game. It's in New England. It's not in Miami. Miami is one of the worst teams in the league who's only looking to increase their draft stock. And then you look at the other game, which is the Chargers and the Chiefs. And as far as I know, also, the Patriots are playing all their players. They're treating it like a playoff game. I would be absolutely shocked if they lost that game. The Chargers at Kansas City. This is interesting because if New England somehow, some way does lose to Miami and Kansas City does win, Kansas City will become the number 2. If Kansas City loses and New England loses, New England is still the number 2. But if New England wins and Kansas City wins, New England is still the number 2. So New England is the number 2 as long as they take care of business versus Miami. Kansas City needs a New England loss and a win to get through. So those are all the potential AFC scenarios. As far as my predictions there, these are my predictions so far. I have New England beating Miami, and I have Kansas City beating the Chargers because I do think they will take it seriously enough to pick up the victory there versus the Chargers because they'll at least be trying to play for that bye week. Now, going over to the NFC, I almost forgot. I know that some of you are here for this just on purpose. The Oakland Raiders still are not eliminated from the AFC playoffs. So let's go on how they could potentially make it to the playoffs. So they would need Pittsburgh to lose to Baltimore and RG3. They would need, weird enough, the Indianapolis Colts to beat the Jags, and they would also need Pittsburgh to lose versus Baltimore, and them to win and take care of business in Denver versus Drew Lock. So that is how they would potentially be in the playoffs. Tennessee loses, Pittsburgh loses, Indy wins, Oakland is in. Even if Indy loses somehow to Jacksonville, Tennessee still finds a way to make the playoffs. Very odd, but nonetheless, that's how it's going in the AFC. So Oakland, if you want to make it, you need a lot to hope for. Now, in the NFC, I'll adjust my predictions after the fact. It's New Orleans, San Francisco, Green Bay, and Seattle, all teams that could potentially have a bye week. The biggest game, in my opinion, is the San Francisco-Seattle game in terms of the impact it could have on the rest of the playoffs. Now, I personally think right now, as I'm speaking, the San Francisco 49ers have the edge in that game, and I don't think I'm going to change my mind when it comes to tomorrow for my official picks. So you have to tune in then for my official picks. But San Francisco is going to win this game, in my opinion. As of now, I just think they're the better team. They're more talented, and I think they can go in there. They're not going to lose twice to Seattle, even though it is on the road. Seattle has actually been susceptible on the road this season. So San Francisco, I believe, will clinch the first seed by beating Seattle in Sunday Night Football. Now, New Orleans plays the Carolina Panthers. I think they're going to win that game. Let's say they don't, though. So they lose the game. It doesn't really matter for their effect, as if Green Bay does take care of business versus Detroit, Green Bay will have the second seed over New Orleans, even if New Orleans wins versus Carolina. So New Orleans needs to hope that Green Bay or San Francisco lose to get the bye week. Now, if San Francisco loses to Seattle and New Orleans loses to Carolina, then Green Bay loses to Detroit, then you would have Seattle, Green Bay, New Orleans. Kind of a weird shift here. If Green Bay wins, Green Bay would become the number 1 seed, New Orleans would become the 2 seed, and Seattle would become the 3 seed. So there are 4 different teams that could become the number 1, number 2, or number 3 seed in this case, and one of San Francisco or Seattle could become the 5 seed. I hope that makes sense to you. All right, that's kind of complicated. As in terms of what should happen, Green Bay should win because they will try to win because they want the bye week. As long as they win, they will have a bye week as far as I am concerned. So either way, if Seattle gets it, they have the 1st seed. If San Francisco gets it, they have the 2 seed. So Green Bay wins, they have a bye week. The Saints, if the Saints win, then they kind of need a little bit of help. So if San Francisco wins, then the Saints need to hope that they don't win and that Seattle wins, and then they'll have the number 2 seed. But if San Francisco and Green Bay do win, they will be stuck in the 3 seed, which I think would do a lot of damage to their playoff hopes. So there's a lot of interesting things there that I think could drastically impact the bye week. In terms of teams that I feel like it would impact the most, I feel like if Green Bay has the number 1 or number 2, that increases their chances of going to the Super Bowl the most drastically, because I do believe they are the team that play a lot better at home as opposed to on the road. I think number 2, it's the Saints, because we know that Drew Brees is better in the dome at home than on the road in the cold, especially if he has to travel to like Green Bay, let's say. But if it's New Orleans at number 1, I do think they have a very strong chance of making the Super Bowl. As for San Francisco, I don't think it really matters too much. I think they can play just about anywhere, and I think that makes them the most flexible team in the NFC. But I could also see it, of course, helping them if they're in the number 1 seed, because then it would take New Orleans or Green Bay out of their home comfort zone. And that's really the only effect it has on them. So then looking at the NFC, the rest of the NFC, of course, we know that Seattle or San Francisco are going to get the 5 seed. Minnesota, no matter what happens here, is locked into the 6 seed. Minnesota cannot move at all. So that being said, Minnesota is stuck number 6 versus one of those teams that finishes 3rd. Now, they could play New Orleans. They could possibly play Seattle if San Francisco loses. So that's interesting. And I would think that they would rather play Seattle, but I'm not sure because they did already lose to Seattle. I guess that's up to you Vikings fans. Let me know in the comment section who you would rather play. The final thing we do need to go over is, of course, the NFC East. I think most of you have heard this by now, but if Philadelphia wins, they are in, and they clinch the 4 seed. They beat Dallas. They deserve to get in. But if somehow, Saquon Barkley goes off and defeats the Philadelphia Eagles, the New York Giants win, and Dallas wins, Dallas is the 4 seed. So all Dallas has to hope for is for the Giants to win, and they make the playoffs at 8-8. But if both the Eagles and the Cowboys win, Philadelphia is in. Those are all the scenarios. Now, as far as what I think is going to happen this week, I went over a little bit of it, but I think it's going to be New England winning over Miami, Baltimore losing to Pittsburgh. I think Tennessee is, though, going to take the number 6 seed over Houston. I also hope that happens because I think that is a better matchup, Tennessee and Kansas City. I think Dallas will beat Washington for their hopes, but I do believe that Philadelphia will find a way to squeak it out over the New York Giants. Although I would not be absolutely shocked if they lost, just because, Philadelphia's a really well-coached team and they're well-prepared, but you never know versus a divisional foe, and we know that Philadelphia is very banged up and not extremely talented. So, I could see it happening, but I'm not willing to bank on it. I do think Oakland will win, but I don't think it will help their cause. Kansas City should come out big versus the Chargers. Minnesota should defeat Chicago, but I don't think it really matters. They might sit people, so regardless, who cares? I do think San Francisco will beat Seattle. And those are all the games that matter for the playoff scenarios and situations. Those are my predictions. Those are the scenarios for Week 17 in the 2019 NFL season. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, once again, subscribe to the channel. Gronk spike the like button. And we will see you tomorrow for my full picks and my full analysis on why those things will happen. So go check out my full picks for Week 17. I also might change my mind, especially on some of the bigger games like Seattle, San Francisco, Tennessee, Houston, Pittsburgh, Baltimore. As more details come out, it's Christmas right now. A lot of teams aren't talking to the reporters right now, so we could learn a lot more information come tomorrow night. So see you then for our picks, and I'm excited to see what happens in Week 17. Thanks, guys, for watching. Comment your opinion below. Peace out.